get a whole lot of information about what you're defending. And so you kind of walk into the unknown and have to figure out what you're supposed to be defending, and very quickly bring some form of sanity to whatever situation you just walked into.
This is a Security Weekly production. Security Weekly is a resource of Cyber Risk Alliance.
The Cybersecurity Collaborative and Wiz is proud to present CISO Stories. Each week, CISO Stories takes a deep dive on security leadership with one of the contributors to my latest book, the best-selling Cecil Compass, Navigating Cybersecurity Leadership Challenges with Insights from Pioneers, as well as from other top CISOs and security thought leaders. The Cybersecurity Collaborative is a unique membership community enabling cybersecurity leaders to work together in a trusted environment. To learn more, visit securityweekly.com/CSC or visit cyberleadersunite.com. I am your host, Todd Fitzgerald, and this week we welcome Brian Wickenhauser, SVP Employee Access and Cryptographic Security at MasterCard.
My path into cybersecurity, like I assume many, was more of a happenstance, where I was working at the time in IT, working on Java application servers, and just had an opportunity to take a job in security as a security engineer. And I had no experience. Talked to some friends who thought this might be a good fit for me. Took a leap of faith, and turns out I love the work. The constantly changing landscape brings a whole new set of problems to me every day, and I feel like I never get bored here. So I've had a lot of great opportunities at MasterCard, and really, really happy to be in the cybersecurity field.
But MasterCard security is obviously extremely important, and so you must have a lot of security interaction.
Yep. So I work on the security team there, so tons of security interaction. Mm-hmm. I started there as a security engineer and moved into our security operations center, where I ran our SOC for maybe 4 or 5 years before just recently moving into our identity and access management practice.
Excellent. So today we're going to talk about CDXs. So for our listeners, what are CDXs?
Yeah, so that's kind of an inside baseball term. You should think of these more as cyber defense competitions, and in general, ways to provide supplemental training to anybody, people coming into the field, seasoned practitioners. I think just a really great way to train up. And specifically for us, we created and participate in some internal competitions between us and maybe some other industry partners. We also do them just internally among other teams here at MasterCard. And just all kinds of knock-on effects beyond the training itself that provide benefits that I think, if you're running your own security operations center somewhere, and you're looking for ways to keep happy, healthy, long-term teams, this is a great way to build that base.
So how do these security defense exercises work?
Yep. So they are like simulated competition environments. Typically, you'll bring a red team and a blue team to these events, and you'll get a set of infrastructure, and your blue team will defend it, and your red team will try to break into the other participants' infrastructure. And you get points for breaking into other infrastructure, capturing flags, and holding them. And then your blue team gets points for how clean they can keep their environment. So really provides a somewhat high pressure situation where you can practice the things that we do on a daily basis in a security operations center.
So is there a time constraint that people have to do these different exercises?
Yeah, so it's usually defined by the competition. Most of them run somewhere between hours and a day or two, and just I think enough time to give you a chance for recon and planning some attacks, and not so long that it gets boring.
So what's the purple team? I've also heard that term used a lot today.
Purple team for us is a little bit more of a hybrid approach for red teaming, where we would park somebody in our SOC while that's going on, and they can look at the capabilities of SOC and basically tweak detection on the fly in an effort to improve our detection capabilities.
Okay. So when you're doing these exercises, what's can you walk us through what would the flow of those things be as people show up to this competition? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it starts maybe a little bit before the start of the competition. So, if you're trying to do this to supplement staffing and training in a security operations center, you'd want to field a team of people that will help you get better. And so this could be operators in your SOC, and likely they'll be part of that. But also some of your pen testers or red teamers coming. And one of the great knock-on effects of sending people to competitions like this or participating is you get your people who do offensive testing to talk to the people that are defending the network. So you put a team together, sign them up, bring them to the competition, and then at start of competition, you basically get a list of infrastructure. You get access to workstations for each of the competitors, and then a list of infrastructure, and that's pretty much all you get in these competitions. You don't get a whole lot of information about what you're defending, and so you kind of walk into the unknown and have to figure out what you're supposed to be defending, and very quickly bring some form of sanity to whatever situation you just walked into.
So do you get time to look at the environment before you're attacked, or when do the attacks start to happen?
I've seen it happen both ways. It is a huge advantage for the red team if you get no time. But if you get too much time, the event can be a little bit boring. So if you give the blue team 3 hours to lock everything down, there may not be much to do. And so typically it's either you get no time or you get like 10 minutes before they turn the red team loose. So
does the red team get any guidance from anywhere as to what they should be attacking, or how does that start? Because I'm assuming the blue team has an infrastructure and they have to learn what the infrastructure is, but how does the red team get engaged in that?
Yeah, so they'll be with the blue team, right? So they'll get the same access to the same infrastructure, and for those 10 minutes, if they're smart, they're doing recon against their own stuff, because that's not against the rules. And then they don't really get a lot about the address ranges for the rest of the teams typically. And so you would have to do your own recon there. And typically you do this in semi-closed networks so that your red teams aren't accidentally doing recon on the internet.
Yeah, or on the rest of your systems, right?
Yeah. You know what? I assumed that no one would do it that way, but yes, very good point.
So how does the scoring work?
So it works different in different competitions, but typically you get access to someone else's server. There's a flag in a standard location. If you write your flag into that standard location, you start getting points. If they put their flag back, you stop getting points. And then usually there's other side challenges. So in recent events, we've had lockpicking challenges on the side, where those are worth points for the competition, but they're completely separate of the sort of force-on-force competition.
The article this podcast is based upon can be viewed in the best-selling cybersecurity leadership book, Cecil Compass, Navigating Cybersecurity Leadership Challenges with Insights from Pioneers. Okay. And so what's the feedback from the teams that are engaged in this kind of process? How do they, I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say, wow, this is really great, or we should do more of this, or, what sort of things are you hearing?
Yeah, so I think the feedback kind of comes into a few different buckets. So, like from individuals who are competing, I think it's been good experience, good learning experience. A lot of the feedback was around the tooling or the lack thereof. You go to these competitions and you don't have the same tooling that typical enterprises use for network defense or host, and so they ended up having to do things by hand that typically they just have a tool that gives them that information. And so learning how the things work under the covers gives them much better context for events that happen as they come back into the workplace. I think I've gotten feedback from managers where, when they send their folks here, our red teamers are talking to our SOC operators and opening up lines of communication that didn't exist prior to the competition. And so you definitely want to have those lines of communication open as the red team finds new ways to start looking at things, sharing that information with our blue team operators and helping us with defense scenarios and mitigations for those things as they come up. Just huge benefits that don't always show up on paper. So.
How do you build these infrastructures? Is there a playbook or some resource that you're going to, if say tomorrow I wanted to start building this, where would I go?
So you have a couple of options. You can hire there are vendors who do this today, and some of them are quite good. If you want to build something like this yourself, that is also an option. Typically in security organizations that I've seen, finding the skill set to do that up front can be a bit of a challenge. But also that is the same type of skill set that you're going to want for, how you manage your infrastructure as companies sort of transform into IT environments with much better sort of code-driven automation. And so bringing those skill sets into the organization isn't going to hurt you.
So would it help like new job applicants to get experience doing these kind of competitions before they're getting done with their university or their community college program? Absolutely.
I think especially when we do sort of college hires or sort of entry level positions, seeing experience like this on a resume is in instant interest for us. Just one, you had the interest to go do something like this, and two, you now have the experience from that event that you can bring into our workplace.
So who gets involved in these things? Is it just the technical staff, or are there others that are engaged in this as well?
Yeah, so I think it depends on how much you're investing in this, right? So if you're running these competitions, you'll have engineers who are building the environment, either people who are interested in coming into security, or some of our management to participate as judges or observers in these events, and certainly all of the practitioners as well would be participating. So all in all, gosh, I want to say we sent maybe a dozen people, maybe a few more to recent event. So.
How can smaller organizations get involved?
I think that's a good question. Not everybody's going to have the resources to stand up an operation like that on their own. I think getting enrolled in events through other vendors or through other companies in your industry, we've taken advantage of that in the past as well, and we'll continue to do so even if we have a team that is generating events for us. Being able to go to someone else's event is also very good for us. Mm-hmm. So look for events outside of outside of your company where you can get in, and not just cyber defense competitions like this, local CTFs at like small security conferences that are local, right? So go to your local B-Sides event, bring a team, participate in their CTF. You get similar experiences out of that, right? You can start very small. It's really just a matter of getting a little bit creative and taking that first step with your team.
Mm-hmm. So how do these support like the broader pipeline efforts within the organization?
That's a good question. So I think one of the things that we've done is not restricted participation to people already in the security organization. And so we've ended up bringing in developers who are very interested in security as part of like our red team, for instance. And we've it's a great way for us to identify talent, not only as a potential career change into security, but we need security champions within our business units to help us advocate for the things that we need to change as a company. And so bringing in developers and building those relationships will help us tap them on the shoulder to use as security champions for our causes in the future.
Are schools doing anything like this? Because it seems like this would be like one of those really cool things that we could be doing in the elementary schools at a different level to help people get engaged and see how all this works.
There are a couple that I'm aware of, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. So if I missed one and it's your organization, feel free to reach out. But the CCDC, the Collegiate Cyber Defense exercise, and there's an organization, Cyber Patriot. I think it's run by maybe the Navy, that also works with like middle schoolers. So I've had a chance to coach one of those teams a few years ago, and that is awesome introductory training to this kind of thing.
Absolutely. So what sort of advice? You've been running SOCs for quite a long time. What are those key things that we should be doing in our SOCs to make them more effective?
Well, I could talk all day about that. I think specifically around the training piece. I think look beyond your budget to send people to classroom-based training. I think classroom-based training is important. I think it's effective. I think you should roll that out within your programs, but there are lots of other things that you should be thinking about in terms of training. I think finding competition environments and using those as a combination of team building, relationship building, and skills building will accelerate your training and likely help with retention as you're getting your folks working together in sort of high pressure environments and bonding.
So since the pandemic, where we've moved into this remote environment in a lot of places, can these competitions be done remotely, or do you need to be physically, in a central location?
So you don't always need to be in a central location. Some of them require it, some of them don't. We have competed in competitions that are completely virtual, and we've had a very good time. I don't think the training is any less effective there. I think the only thing you might miss out on is we tend to do these with industry partners. Sometimes we'll work across sectors with companies that also provide critical services for the country, and just to get to see how they defend together and being able to talk with your counterparts in other industries or within your industry helps with relationship building and bouncing ideas off each other, that kind of thing.
This has been excellent, Brian. I think, this is such a useful way to get people engaged. And I like what you really said about, it's not just the skill development, it's about team building and using that as an opportunity. What other advice would you give to our current CISOs, emerging CISOs, experienced CISOs as they're looking at adding this into their programs?
I would say just if I think about the way that this sort of grew organically at MasterCard, it doesn't take much for a CISO to encourage this kind of thing. Especially up front, if you don't have a lot of budget, simply expressing interest in training in this way can produce or cause a spark within your teams to go do something like this and get it started. So to me, I don't think the ask is to say, chief security officers should invest millions of dollars in this type of training for their organizations. I think more so acknowledging that this kind of training is beneficial for your teams, giving them the time to train in this way. If you think that's effective and you want to follow on with funding to build out your own competition environments or travel and participate in these things with other partners, that's great. But I don't think that's a necessary first step.
Well, thanks, Brian. This has been excellent. And thanks for the work that you're doing in helping to promote this.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Wiz is on a mission to help every organization rapidly identify and remove critical risks in their cloud environments. Purpose-built for the cloud, Wiz delivers full-stack visibility, accurate risk prioritization, and enhanced business agility. Wiz connects in minutes using an agentless approach that scans both platform configurations and inside every workload. We perform a deep assessment that goes beyond what standalone CSPM and CWPP tools offer to find the toxic combination of flaws that represent real risk. To learn more about Wiz, please visit securityweekly.com/Wiz.